Hello, everybody. This is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover. And before I get started talking about the movie that we're going to talk about here, you already know what the movie is. You'll seen by the title of the video. But I just want to make it clear, okay, that if anybody is easily offended or anybody you know cannot deal with a movie about horror material mixed with satire mixed with eroticism, if you don't feel you're mature enough to handle this, or you don't feel like you can listen to a review about a movie like this without at least trying to think of it somewhat objectively, then yeah, you might want to go ahead and turn off this video here because we're gonna have kind of a lengthy and frank discussion about this movie. And so now basically that's what I'm saying. If you can't handle it and you don't think you can, hey, no harm, no foul. Just kind of letting you know before we get started on this what you're in for with this video. Okay. Now, also too, though, there's not going to be any explicit footage or anything like that on here. It's not going to be that. We're just like, if anybody's seen any of my videos, we're just going to talk about it. So anyway, okay, still here. Okay. Now, the movie we're going to talk about tonight is Immoral Tales. And this movie is a French and Polish production, written and directed by Walderian Borowczyk. I think that's the way they say it. And on the special features, they just call him Boro, Boro. But anyway, though, yeah, this movie here, it came out in 1974, and it's a collection of short films that this director was hired to make, and he was asked to make short films that blended horror, but also blended like eroticism, sexuality, um, uh, satire, things like that. And so he made this movie. And honestly, the funny thing, okay, quick funny little story about this movie. The first time I saw it was actually on Netflix of all places. And the thing that was funny about it was it said it didn't explain really what the movie was. The only thing it explained was just a collection of short films, and one of them talking about Elizabeth Bathory, the Scarlet Countess, the original female Dracula, and that's what ended up getting me into the movie in the first place. I just thought it was going to be another kind of horror film. Little did I know what I was in for. So I got on Netflix and I watched the movie, and very shocked and surprised what I saw. And but there is definitely an element of horror to this. Now, how I ended up getting it is, are you sitting there like, oh, you just like dirty movies and stuff? That's how you got it. Believe it or not, this is actually, I had mentioned to my brother Bill that I had watched the movie on Netflix and everything, kind of explained it to him a little bit, and he admitted that that he had trouble trying to figure out what to get me for Christmas, so he got me this Blu-ray for Christmas. So I got this as a Christmas present, believe it or not, by my brother Bill. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate it, and I appreciate him for doing it and stuff, but still, just not exactly not exactly usually the kind of movie people will ask for Christmas. But still, I'm glad they got it for me, and it's a gift, so I keep it, and I appreciate it like any gift I'm given. But yeah, so anyway, so the movie is five short films, like I said, and there's some very frank subject matter in these short films, and like I said, you really need to be mature minded if you're going to watch this movie. I'm going to tell you the truth right now. Um, if you're going to go into this, acting really immature and just completely easily offended, and you don't want to look at anything with an open mind, or try to look at this as something other than smut, then yeah, you're not going to like this movie. I would definitely seriously recommend you stay away from this movie. Yes, explicit nudity. I mean, just right there, the cover right there kind of gives you an idea of what the movie's going to be. So, the first there are five short films in this. Like I said, the first one is called The Tide, and the story is about a young man and his younger cousin. They're out bike riding one day and everything else, and he tells her that he wants to take her to the beach, and he wants the ocean to hit high tide and everything else. And then, you kind of realize that what it is, and his cousin, she's kind of young and naive, and she kind of seems kind of like a romantic type of girl, or whatever. And she's riding a bike, and they ride their bikes down to the beach and stuff. And he's kind of very insistent on this, that whatever this thing is has to happen at when the tide hits its ultimate peak and everything else. And he's got the tide tables, and he's pretty much figured it out to the last detail. And then what it is basically he wants his cousin to give him oral sex, and he wants to climax in her mouth at precisely the moment that the tide reaches its highest peak. Like I said, I told you this is an explicit movie, so. And so it's like, you say, well, what is the horror element of that? Well, you could say that is the horror element of, lots of people have gone through this. You could say that the horror element comes from when, when you're a younger sibling or a younger cousin or something like that, and you're in a family where you have older brothers or sisters or cousins, whatever, that you are brought up and taught, taught to respect and trust them, and, to, basically do what they tell you, that kind of thing. And then what they tell you to do isn't, something really you should be doing anyway. And then also too, that you realize that you're being used by this person for their own gratification, and that they really have no feeling for you, or really any love or compassion for you. So the horror can come out in that scenario. But also too, like I said earlier at the very beginning of this video, the movie is a French and Polish production. So I mean, I hate to sound like this, but if you're the kind of if you're the kind of man, okay, if you're gonna go watch this movie and think you're gonna see a lot of nudity, okay, I got good news and I got bad news. The good news is yes, there is rampant nudity through. I mean, this movie has nudity pretty much from beginning to end, female nudity all the way through it. So if you want to see nudity, you're in luck. This movie is definitely what you're going to want. But the bad news is like I said, this is a French Polish production. So if you're grossed out by the idea of women with hair on their armpits, then yeah, you're not going to like this. Also, though, too, if you're like a young guy, say like you're a young guy, like about 18, 19, 20, and if you're watching this video and you're like, wow, okay, this movie has a lot of nudity, female nudity, I want to see this and everything else. If you're the kind of guy that you're confused as to why women would have hair between their legs or anything like that, then yeah, you're probably not going to like this either, because this movie came out in 1974, and this was long before all this stuff that women do nowadays, and for nudity's sake, and shaving their genital area and all this other kind of. This was long before that. So basically these girls all have muff, to be blunt. But so anyway, so if you're offended by that kind of thing, if you're offended by, like I said, women with hair on their armpits and stuff like that, if you're offended by that kind of thing, then yeah, you need to stay away from this. Don't even think about it, because you're going to see a lot of that. The Now that was the first story. The second story is called Theresa's Philosophy. I believe that was the name of it. And basically, the story focuses on this girl named Therese, who she is basically a very good church going girl and everything else, but she's kind of got some secrets and stuff. And she gets basically she gets punished by her mother and sent to her room to be by herself. And she's given like water to drink, and she's given these large cucumbers to eat. And to be honest, strips naked, and she's thinking about, what she learns in church, and she's thinking about Christ and religious elements and all this other kind of stuff. And she uses the cucumbers to masturbate. So I'm just letting you know what you're in for with this. So, yeah. And then you know, she uses them as phallic symbols to use them to masturbate with. And then she escapes. She does escape. She sneaks out of her house and runs away. So she still kind of does escape. But, then, it's a long short, and it is explicit. Some, you don't actually see some things, but we'll just leave it at that. It's explicit. There is nudity, and you get the idea. It's more implied than what you actually see. So then we move into the third short film, which actually was cut from this film. I believe it was banned, and it was cut out, but then later it was restored. As a matter of fact, here on the Arrow Blu-ray, I believe it says here that the segment is called "The Beast," and the filmmaker, he actually took it out, and then he used it to make a full length movie using that footage, and then it was restored for this later on. But I believe that this here being the Arrow release of the movie, and I think it does say in there in the special features that yeah that that the footage was taken out and put back in, but it's not on the DVD. I think it's only on the Blu-ray here. So if you still get this, and I think at the moment right now, I think this Blu-ray is out of print. So I don't know. You may not even have very good luck finding it. So anyway, though, going to the third story is called "The Beast," and it involves a young woman who she goes out and she's looking for her pet lamb, and she comes across a beast, which is basically kind of like a big wolf kind of creature, and not without going into too much detail, it turns into kind of like a very adult version of Beauty and the Beast. So basically, I'm saying, bestiality, also known as interspecies erotica. So that's what you're getting with this thing. And it's this, human woman having sex, not entirely consensual, but still having sex with an animal. So just so I let you know what you're in for with this one. So, and then we go into the fourth segment, which is the one that I wanted to watch the movie for, which is the Elizabeth Bathory sequence. And this sequence here was, it's kind of long, and it goes at a pretty slow clip. And you basically have, what was her name? The name of the actress. So does it say here? Just a second. Let me see the name of the actress here. I know I got it right here. Paloma Picasso, I believe it is. Yes, Paloma Picasso plays Elizabeth Bathory here. And the segment starts off that this is during her reign, where she goes to this village and she's looking for young women to work for her because, if you know the true story of Elizabeth Bathory, what it was she was a countess who her husband died, and she lived in this. Basically, she lived in a castle, and she had all these servants. And what she would do is she would go and she would recruit young girls from nearby villages to come and work for her, and she would tell all these stories and these lies that if these girls would come to work for her, that they would be treated like royalty, that, they would be working, but they'd be treated really well. They get, they would be taken care of, their families would be taken care of, everything else. They would have everything they could ever need or want. And they would never want or need for anything else. And so these girls would go and they would start to work for her, only to realize that they're going to be punished, that they're going to be abused and ultimately tortured and murdered. And what would happen is Elizabeth Bathory would drain them of their blood. Ultimately, that's what would happen. They would die. She would drain them of their blood, and she would bathe in their blood. And I think there was even accounts saying that she did taste their blood, and I think even at one point even tasted their flesh. I seem to remember hearing that in a history documentary somewhere. But yeah, but so you have this segment, which is all these. The segment was shot in Sweden, so you have all these very lovely, beautiful, sexy, naked Swedish girls, and they're kind of fighting and all this kind of stuff, and they're all nude, and they're taking the shower and stuff like that, and then they realize that they've been tricked and that Bathory brought them there to be killed, and then it cuts away from seeing them being killed, but you do see Bathory getting to a bathtub filled with blood, and surprisingly enough, and they tell you on the bonus features here too that the blood that she bathes in is actually real blood. It's not human blood, but it is like animal blood. It's like cattle blood or something like that. Something they got from like an abattoir or something like that. But they said that in the bonus features, they say here that the director he did not want to. They tried like different solutions. Like they would try like the Karo syrup with red food coloring, and they would try other formulas to make fake blood, and it just didn't look right, and he didn't like the way it looked. So ultimately, they went and they got all this animal blood to use for the scene, and then they turned around and I think they said they made black pudding out of it, and everybody ate it. So there you go. But obviously, that's where the real horror element in this movie comes in is the Elizabeth Bathory sequence. But and then finally we end the you have the last short film on here, which is Lucretia Borgia, and basically it's talking about how she had an incest relationship with her brother and I believe her father, and the idea was that even though she was married, that she would conceive a child through incest because the Borgias wanted to. Um, if I remember correctly, the Borgias did not want to have, you know, their heir to the throne, to the kingdom, and everything else be from anybody else. They wanted they wanted the next one to take the throne to be pure Borgia, you know. And so there's this lengthy sex scene where this girl is having sex with both her father and her brother so that they can impregnate her so that she can give birth to a new heir, and then that heir would be it would keep basically the idea is that these people that are in power are keeping their bloodline going by conceiving only within the family bloodline, that they would not let anybody else they would not let anybody else's bloodline or anything contaminate their rights to the throne, that so they could keep their reign of power going. And but anyway, though, yeah, that's pretty much about it. The movie has five tales, like I said, and like I said before, I mean, there is quite a bit of nudity in this. So if you're wanting to see female nudity, you're in luck. This movie is going to definitely take care of you in that department. But like I said, okay, you heard the subject matter of what's in this movie. You have incest. The first story is incest between two cousins. The final story is an incest between a daughter with her father and her brother. So you have incest. That's one thing. If you're turned off by that kind of thing, there is, kind of like fetish, I guess you could say, with the Lucretia, the Elizabeth Bathory segment, and blood fetish and things like that. So there's that. There's masturbation within the Theresa philosophy. So, and then there's bestiality, like I said, interspecies erotica with the beast segment. So I'm letting you know what you're in for. So this movie is definitely there is no way this movie is for kids. And don't even think about, if you get this movie, if you have kids, get your kids out of the room. Don't let them watch this. Of course, I don't know. Being the kind of film it is, I don't know. They may get like 5 minutes into it and lose interest. So you may not even have to worry about it. But anyway, though, I'm just kind of letting you know what you're in for if you can even still get this movie. Like I said, it's this came out from Arrow, but I think at the moment, it's out of print at the moment. So the bonus features are new high definition digital transfers of two versions of the feature, the familiar 4-part edition, and the original 5-part conception, including the short film The Beast of Givaudan, I think that's how I say, which later became the feature The Beast, which that movie is still on available from Arrow. Uncompressed French mono 1.0 PCM audio. Optional English subtitles. Introduction by Burrow expert Daniel Bird. Love Reveals Itself, a video essay about the film featuring production manager Dominique Duverge. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names. I'm sorry. And cinematographer Noel Vierre. Obscure Pleasures, a portrait of Borrow, the director, a newly edited archival interview in which the filmmaker discusses painting, cinema, and sex. Blow Ups, a visual essay by Daniel Bird about Burroughs' works on paper. Theatrical trailer, reversible sleeve featuring Burroughs' original poster design. Illustrated booklet containing new writing on the film by Daniel Bird, and an archive piece by Philip Strick. So anyway, so that's it. We talked about Immoral Tales, and like I said, yes, this movie is adults only. I'm not gonna say it's pornography. This is one of those kind of movies though. Like I said, if you're the kind of person who approaches a movie that has sexual subject matter as immature and stuff like that, and you just see it as porn and everything else, and you don't see any kind of subtext to it or anything like that, you might just say no, this is porn or whatever else. But if you're the kind of person who's like, well, yeah, there is sex in it, there is nudity, but there is kind of something else going on here, and try to take a more kind of mature approach to it. So it depends on what goes on. But anyway, though, so yeah, like I said, this is definitely an adults only kind of movie, and I don't recommend you letting the kids watch it. And that's pretty much all I have to say. But like I said, if you want, you love, beautiful women and nudity, this movie's got you covered. I mean, you'll definitely, the long version of the movie is 125 minutes long, and the short version is 103 minutes long. Either way, you watch this movie, if that's what you want to see, you're going to get plenty of it. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up. We talked about Immoral Tales. So, if anybody sat through this entire video, thank you for doing so. I do appreciate you doing it. I hope I honestly haven't offended anybody. It was not my intention to offend anybody. It was just, to just tell you what this movie is, and if you watch it, what you're going to be getting out of it. So just kind of letting you know what you're in for if you watch this movie. So, but if you did watch the video and you liked it, I appreciate you for doing so. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. This is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover. And if you love French, very naughty horror, sexy satires as much as I do, then I'll talk to you later. Good night.